right before I could slip the crushed-up sleeping pill into Julian's glass of warm milk. My brain suddenly went completely clear. It was like a lightning bolt of cold, hard reality struck me out of nowhere. In that exact split second, I realized something terrifying. I was the villainous second lead in a cheesy romance novel. In the original plot of this twisted story, I'd been hopelessly, desperately in love with Julian Vance for years. But Julian was this pristine, untouchable god of the corporate world, cold, distant, and so painfully proper, he probably hadn't even experienced a wild night in his entire life. After countless failed attempts at getting his attention, the book version of me decided to take matters into her own hands. I was going to drug him, force a one-night stand, and then use the scandal to blackmail him into a marriage. But according to the book, the real heroine, the only woman destined to actually melt Julian's icy heart, would show up right after we tied the knot. Julian would stop at nothing to get a divorce. And I, the desperate, unhinged wife, would descend into a spiral of jealousy and crime, eventually ending up behind bars. I looked at the man sitting across the room at his mahogany desk, completely absorbed in his laptop. If I went through with this, tonight would be the night he would look back on as his absolute greatest humiliation. He would hate me forever, and he'd eventually be the one to hand me over to the police. A cold sweat broke out across my neck. I slowly drew the glass of milk back toward my chest, desperately trying to keep my voice steady. Hey, Julian, looks like the milk got a bit cold. Let me take it back to the kitchen and warm it up for you. No need. Before I could even take a step back, his hand clamped firmly around my wrist. His grip was warm and unbreakable. He took the glass from my hand and drank the entire thing in one long, terrifying gulp. My eyes went wide, my heart hammering against my ribs. Julian slowly set the empty glass down, looking up at me. A dark, dangerously gentle smile played on his lips. It's late, Tiffany. We should get some rest. Don't you think? His words made my mind go completely blank. Panic surged through me, before I could even wonder if he knew what I had done. I ripped my hand out of his grip and bolted for the door. I grabbed the heavy brass handle and twisted it with all my might. But it wouldn't budge. I twisted again, rattling the wood, pouring every ounce of my adrenaline into it until crack. The entire doorknob snapped off in my hand. I stood there, trembling, staring at the useless piece of metal in my palm. I was an idiot. To guarantee my perfect plan succeeded, I had bribed Julian's sister, Chloe, to lock the heavy master bedroom door from the outside and ignore any noises coming from within. Slow footsteps echoed behind me. I spun around, backing up against the locked door. Julian's eyes, usually cool and calculating, were darkened by a hazy, intense heat. I laughed nervously, holding up my hands to keep him at bay. Julian, listen to me. The most important thing right now is to stay calm. You're going to regret this if you don't. But he wasn't listening. His gaze was locked on me like a predator cornering its prey. In the next heartbeat, his arm wrapped tightly around my waist, pulling me flush against him, while his other hand gently but firmly cupped the back of my neck, forcing my head back. Good girl, he whispered, his collarbone flushed pink, his voice a low, raspy velvet that vibrated against my skin. You shouldn't leave things half done. Right. I was so dazed by his closeness that I nodded blankly, only to snap out of it a second later. Wait. No. Julian. He didn't give me a chance to finish. When his lips met mine, I heard him let out a soft, heavy sigh of absolute satisfaction. I don't know how many hours passed before the world finally quieted down. I fell asleep, curled up against his chest, a fleeting thought crossing my mind in the darkness. It felt incredibly important, but my exhausted brain couldn't hold on to it. When I finally opened my eyes, bright morning sunlight was streaming through the high windows. Grandpa, Julian isn't even awake yet. This is ridiculous. He's supposed to be the CEO of Vance Enterprises, and he doesn't have an ounce of discipline. Well, you can't really blame him. Chloe. I saw Tiffany coming up to his suite last night. They were probably just working late. The voices outside the door made my heart stop. It was Chloe's teasing tone, followed by the booming, stern voice of Julian's grandfather. My eyes flew open, finding myself still wrapped tightly in Julian's arms. I scrambled out of bed like I'd been electrocuted. My entire body aching, I groaned, rubbing my lower back. As a wave of sheer dread washed over me, how could I have forgotten? To force Julian into marrying me. I had plotted with Chloe to have Grandpa Richard catch us red-handed the next morning, as our families were old money royalty and lifelong friends. They'd been pushing for a merger of our estates for years. If Grandpa saw this, a wedding was a done deal. I looked back at the bed. Julian was awake, leaning back against the headboard, looking incredibly relaxed and not at all panicked about being caught. "Julian," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Get up. Go hide in the bathroom or something, and I'll sneak out when the coast is clear." Julian raised an eyebrow. "Why would I hide?" "What do you mean, why, if Grandpa walks in? We're dead. Do you want to be forced into a marriage?" At that exact moment, the footsteps stopped right outside. "Julian, are you in there?" "Wait. Why is the lock broken?" "Hold on. Let me use the master key." The lock clicked, and the heavy door swung open. For a second, the room was dead silent. 6 eyes stared at each other in absolute, agonizing awkwardness. Chloe was the first to break the silence. "Oh my God. Tiffany, are you guys—" She fake-covered her eyes, but clearly peeked through her fingers with a massive grin. "Does this mean I'm finally getting a sister-in-law?" Grandpa Richard slammed his heavy wooden cane against the hardwood floor, his face turning a deep, angry red. "You absolute scoundrel. Get dressed and get down to the study right now." The door slammed shut. I buried my face in my hands, letting out a defeated groan. "When we go down there, just tell him it was a misunderstanding. Tell him nothing happened." "You want me to tell him nothing happened?" Julian's eyes slowly drifted down to my collarbone. "You want me to tell my grandfather that we spent the night under the covers just discussing the stock market?" I looked down and blushed furiously. The dark red marks scattered across my skin were completely undeniable. I bit my lip, looking away. "Just let me handle it, as long as we both insist it was a mistake. Grandpa can't force us." The faint trace of amusement faded from Julian's face. "Tiffany, it's not entirely my fault," I mumbled, my voice growing smaller. "Okay, fine. I put the stuff in the milk. I'm sorry, in the study downstairs." Julian stood tall, facing his grandfather. I had never seen him look so quiet, so willing to take a lashing. The old man's voice roared through the room, lecturing him about honor, family, and respect. Julian didn't say a single word in his defense. I kept giving Chloe frantic looks, begging her to intervene. But she just gave me a subtle thumbs up that said, "I've got this handled." Then she turned to Julian, putting on a dramatic show of anger. "How could you be so irresponsible? Julian, are you even a man?" I choked on my own breath, trying to speak up. "Grandpa, really? It was just Tiffany." "Sweetheart, don't defend him." Grandpa Richard interrupted gently, before turning his glare back to Julian. "Vance men do not shirk their responsibilities. If you think you can just play around and walk away, you've got another thing coming." Julian finally spoke, his voice deep and steady. "I have no intention of walking away. I will marry her." I looked up, meeting his gaze. His dark eyes were intense, heavy with an emotion I couldn't quite read. In that moment, I forgot everything I was going to say. Grandpa Richard nodded, satisfied. "Tiffany, don't you worry. Our family will make this right. You won't suffer a single bit of disrespect." From that point on, things spiraled entirely out of my control. Our parents met up immediately, thrilled by the news. They began planning a massive, high-profile Hampton-style wedding, talking about how a union between our families should be the social event of the decade. A high-profile wedding. If we got married in the public eye, then when the inevitable divorce happened, the entire world would watch me get cast aside. I was an actress, being a young, public divorcee because of a husband who never loved me sounded like a nightmare. "No." I spoke up, interrupting the wedding planner. The room fell silent, everyone turning to look at me. Under the weight of their stares, I forced myself to stand firm. I'm in the middle of filming a major project, and a sudden, highly publicized marriage will completely overshadow my work. I want to keep this private. No press. No public announcement. My mother sighed. Honestly, Tiffany, you should just retire. You're working yourself to the bone for those indie films when you have more than enough family trust money to live comfortably forever. I like acting, I muttered. I just don't want a public wedding. My mother turned to Julian, hoping he would talk some sense into me. Julian, tell her how ridiculous she's being. Julian looked at me, a strange, unreadable expression in his eyes. Whatever she wants. I'll go along with it, if she wants a private marriage. That's what we'll do. Oh, Julian, you're already spoiling her too much. My mother laughed. Even though a secret marriage was my idea, a sharp pang of bitterness twisted in my chest. Of course, Julian agreed so easily. He probably wanted to keep it a secret even more than I did. That way, when he eventually met the real heroine of his life, he could erase me from his history without leaving a single trace. I told myself to stop being pathetic. Get a grip. Tiffany, don't be a fool. While the formal family dinner was set for a month later, we couldn't delay getting the marriage certificate. The atmosphere at the city clerk's office was incredibly tense. Maybe because we didn't look like a happy, blushing couple. The clerk kept glancing at Julian's cold, intimidating face, and then whispering to me, asking if I was here of my own free will or if I needed her to call security. Finally, Julian leaned forward, his voice dripping with dry sarcasm. Do you offer to call the police for every couple that walks in here? Or are we receiving special VIP treatment? The clerk shut her mouth and quickly stamped the papers. The moment we walked out of the courthouse, Julian drove me straight to his luxury downtown penthouse. He rolled down the window and handed me a spare key card. His expression distant. Mrs. Gable already moved your things in. I have some urgent business to handle at the office. So don't wait up for me. Okay, I said, taking the key card. I turned and walked into the building without looking back. The penthouse was exactly what you'd expect from Julian Vance Minimalist. Elegant. Decorated in cool shades of slate and charcoal. The only thing out of place was the massive, extravagant floral arrangements Gable had placed in every corner of the living room to celebrate our honeymoon phase. I pinched the bridge of my nose, letting out a tired laugh. I walked into the master bedroom. Sure enough, my clothes had been hung up right next to Julian's expensive suits, but knowing we were destined for a divorce, I didn't want to make things any harder than they had to be. I packed up my bags and moved everything to the guest suite down the hall. Julian really didn't come home early. I was just about to turn off the lights and go to sleep when my phone rang. I picked it up, hearing the loud, chaotic background noise of a high-end lounge. A moment later, a polite male voice spoke over the din. Hi, Mrs. Vance. This is Leo, Mr. Vance's assistant. Julian has had a bit too much to drink tonight, and I was hoping you could come pick him up. In the past, I would have leaped at the chance to play the doting, worried partner, but everything was different now. I hesitated. Can't you just call him an Uber or have a company driver take him home? It's a bit complicated, Leo said, sounding genuinely stressed. I have to stay behind to wrap up this charity gala. And you know how Julian is. He absolutely hates strangers driving his personal car. If I call a random driver, I'll probably lose my job. That did sound exactly like Julian's rigid, particular personality. I see hid. Not wanting to make a working man's life miserable? Fine, send me the address. I'm on my way. I took a cab to the hotel valet where Leo was waiting. He walked me to the passenger side of Julian's sleek black sedan. He's already in the back. Thank you so much. Mrs. Vance, I have to get back inside. Don't worry about it, I said, sliding into the driver's seat. Julian was leaning against the leather headrest, his eyes closed. When he heard the door shut, he opened his eyes and looked at me. His gaze was unusually soft, slightly unfocused, and it made my heart ache. I forced myself to look away and started the ignition. We drove in silence, the quiet hum of the engine filling the car. When I finally pulled into the penthouse's private underground parking garage, the silence became deafening. Suddenly, he spoke. Tiffany. Yeah, look at me. In the dim light of the garage, his hand reached out, wrapping around mine. His breath, faintly warm with the scent of expensive whiskey, came closer. "Do you remember this car?" My face instantly burned hot. Of course I remembered. Years ago, I had tried to clumsily seduce him in the back seat of this very car, only to be rejected and lectured on proper behavior. "I don't remember." I lead, trying to pull my hand back. "You're sober enough to walk. Let's go upstairs." But he didn't let go. He lifted my hand, pressing his lips gently against my palm. The kiss was incredibly soft, lingering, as if he genuinely cherished me. I felt the high, protective walls I had built around my heart starting to crumble at an alarming speed. Julian reached out, his hand curving around the back of my neck, pulling me gently toward him, looking into his dark, mesmerizing eyes. I felt like I was drowning. "Do you still love me?" he whispered. My heart did a violent flip, but a wave of bitter sadness immediately followed. I kept telling myself not to fall back into the trap, but it was so hard. I had loved this man for half my life, and my body and heart were betraying me, desperate to lose themselves in this temporary sweetness. I closed my eyes, just one last time. I promised myself. The car rocked gently in the quiet garage, the windows fogging up in the cool air. As my quiet gasps and his heavy, desperate breaths dissolved into a flurry of breathless kisses. The scene is a wrap. "What are you doing still sitting there?" My co-star tapped my shoulder, shaking me out of my trance. I blinked, immediately locking my phone screen. "Nothing. Just got distracted." On my screen was a thread of text messages from Julian over the last week. I hadn't opened a single one, let alone replied. He had eventually stopped texting, his pride likely too bruised to keep reaching out to a wife who had vanished. It had been a week since that night in the garage. The moment the rush of hormones had cleared, I realized I had messed up again. Before Julian could even wake up the next morning, I had packed my bags and fled to the set of my new film in another state. "Oh my God. Look at the entertainment blogs," someone nearby whispered. "He is absolutely gorgeous." "Who?" "Julian Vance. Look at this video." The film set started buzzing with excitement, crew members crowding around a tablet. "A billionaire defending a damsel in distress. How romantic." "Who is the girl?" "Isn't she that rising indie star?" "Harper Wells. He's incredibly hot. That director he punched is a known predator in the industry. He finally messed with the wrong person." I wonder if Julian got hurt. Not badly, but he threw a glass bottle right at the guy's face. My brain went completely numb the second I heard Julian's name. My fingers trembled as I forced my phone open and searched the trending topics. Standing right at the top of the search results, highlighted in bold, was Julian's name. I clicked on the video. It was filmed in a dimly lit VIP dining room. A young, beautiful actress, Harper Wells, was clearly trying to reject a sleazy director's advances. But the man was persistent, grabbing her wrist. The other executives at the table just watched, too afraid of the director's influence to step in. Suddenly, Julian, who had been sitting quietly at the end of the table, spoke up, his voice ice cold. "Does Director Thorne mistake every restaurant for his personal bedroom? If you can't control yourself, I highly recommend finding a surgeon who can help you snip it off." The director, humiliated, threw a heavy glass bottle directly at Harper's face. Julian moved instantly, stepping in front of her. The bottle shattered against his forearm. Without missing a beat, Julian delivered a brutal blow to the director's chest, knocking him flat on his back. Throughout the entire video, Julian kept Harper shielded behind him, ensuring she wasn't touched. The video cut off there, but the comment sections were already wild with rumors, users instantly shipping them as a perfect match. The classic romance novel plot, I thought, closing my eyes. The pure, resilient heroine meets her powerful protector. My fingers clenched into my palms. It was happening. Julian had finally met the true love of his life. Over the next few days, the tabloids were flooded with photos of Julian and Harper. Rumors of them visiting the hospital together and exchanging looks at industry events dominated the internet. It got so loud that even Grandpa Richard, who never paid attention to celebrity gossip, called us back to the family estate that very night. The moment we walked through the front door, I immediately started running damage control for Julian. "Grandpa, you know how the tabloids are. I said, putting on a bright, casual smile. They twist every single photo to make a story. I've been in the industry for years, and I've seen it all. I trust Julian completely. I started listing fake rumors about myself to prove my point. Last year, they said I was secretly married to my co-star just because we grabbed coffee after a shoot. And remember when I went to the hospital for a sprained ankle? And the blogs claimed I was secretly pregnant. It's all nonsense. Grandpa Richard's tense shoulders finally relaxed, his anger fading. But next to me, Julian's gaze was burning hot, his eyes drilling into the side of my face. "What are you staring at?" I shot him a quick, irritated glare. "I'm literally saving your skin here." In Grandpa's eyes, our silent, tense exchange looked like a couple sharing a private, playful moment. He cleared his throat. "Well, seeing you two so close makes me happy. But, Julian," his voice turned stern again, "make sure you handle these rumors quickly. I won't have this nonsense affecting our family's reputation." "I understand," Julian said smoothly, finally breaking his gaze from me. "It won't happen again." The moment we stepped outside the estate, I ignored him and marched toward my car. "Tiffany," Julian called out, his long strides easily catching up to me. He grabbed my wrist, pulling me to a stop. "What is wrong with you?" "Nothing is wrong," I said, keeping my face completely blank. "You've been acting incredibly strange," he said, looking down into my eyes. "Did I do something to upset you?" "No, is it the rumors about Harper Wells? I swear to you." "Nothing is." "Julian," I interrupted, my voice flat. "We slept together a couple of times. We're both consenting adults. It's really not a big deal." "Why are you acting like I own you?" I forced down the rising lump in my throat. In the original novel, my unrequited love was just a stepping stone to highlight how devoted Julian was to Harper. I wasn't going to play that pathetic role anymore. "Don't worry," I said, looking him dead in the eye. "I won't chase you anymore. In fact, when you're ready to be with the person you actually love, just let me know. I've already drafted the divorce papers, and I'll sign them whenever you want. We shouldn't see each other until then." I ripped my hand out of his grip, got into my car, and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I saw Julian standing frozen under the streetlights. Looking completely stunned, I took a deep breath, blinking back the tears. "You did the right thing. Tiffany, one day, you'll look at him and feel absolutely nothing." For the next few weeks, I did everything I could to avoid Julian and Harper Wells. But destiny has a funny way of pushing you exactly where you don't want to go. An independent producer I had worked with for years invited me to an exclusive dinner to discuss a highly anticipated feature film. I usually hated networking events, but I loved the script and knew the director was aiming for the international festival circuit. So I agreed to go. The moment I walked into the private dining room, my heart sank. "Ah, Tiffany, glad you could make it," the producer beamed, gesturing to the other side of the table. "I'd like you to meet our primary investor, Mr. Julian Vance. And sitting next to him is our other lead candidate, Miss Harper Wells." Harper sat next to Julian, looking elegant and sweet. They looked like a picture-perfect couple. I let out a silent, self-mocking laugh. When Julian's cold eyes locked onto me, I immediately looked down, treating him like a complete stranger. As the dinner progressed and the wine poured, the producer turned to Julian. "Mr. Vance, we have the two biggest names in indie cinema right here. Honestly, the director and I are split on who should play the female lead. Since you're our main financial backer, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Who do you think is better suited?" The room went quiet, everyone waiting for his response. Julian remained silent for a few agonizing seconds, letting the suspense build, before speaking in a calm, measured voice. "If it were up to me, I believe Miss Wells is far more suited for this role." My head snapped up, a rush of hot, angry blood rushing straight to my brain. Unbelievable. He was already prioritizing his true love, and he was willing to use my career as a stepping stone to please her. And why is that? "Mr. Vance?" I asked, my voice dripping with ice. "I'd love to know what makes Miss Wells so much more qualified." Julian didn't answer. The tension in the room grew so thick you could cut it with a knife. Harper looked back and forth between us, a soft, knowing smile appearing on her face. I had no idea what she was smiling about, and frankly, I didn't care. Well, we still have formal auditions next week. The director quickly intervened, trying to smooth things over. We don't have to make any final decisions tonight. A quiet, furious fire burned in my chest for the rest of the evening. Julian could have his love story, but he was not going to ruin my career. The second I got back to my apartment, I called my lawyer and told him to draft the divorce papers immediately. The next morning, I marched straight into Vance Enterprises, bypassed his secretary, and slammed the documents onto his desk. Sign them. Julian, I want a divorce. Julian slowly looked up from his computer, his expression cold and unreadable. Why? Why? I scoffed, letting out a bitter laugh. Do I really need a reason? You've barely known Harper Wells for a month, and you're already trying to blackball me from a movie I've wanted for a year. If we don't get a divorce now, are you going to throw me in jail next? Julian's eyes darkened, a dangerous edge creeping into his voice. Marriage is not a game. Tiffany, you don't get to just walk in here and demand a divorce without a valid reason. You want a reason, I yelled, my anger taking over. I don't love you anymore. Is that a good enough reason for you? Julian stood up slowly, his towering frame casting a shadow over me. He took a step forward, and I instinctively took a step back. You don't love me anymore? Then who do you love? Is that why you've been avoiding me? Before I knew it, my back hit his office desk. He leaned in close, trapping me between his arms, his gaze dropping to my lips. You've loved me since we were in high school. Tiffany, do you remember what you told me during your first confession? You said, if I was a bone, you'd gladly be a little puppy dog. Biting down and never letting go, my face flushed crimson. I was a teenager. I was stupid. I tried to push him away, but his grip on my waist only tightened. Frustrated, humiliated, and utterly exhausted, I buried my face in his chest and began to cry. You're mean to me. Julian, you've never been nice to me. Not even once. Julian went completely rigid. His hold on me softened instantly, taking advantage of his hesitation. I stepped on his foot with my designer heel, ripped myself out of his embrace, and ran out of his office, throwing one last watery glare over my shoulder. The past is in the past. I want a divorce. Since Julian refused to sign the papers and I didn't want to drag our families into the drama yet, I ended up calling Chloe. She had always been my closest confidant, even if she was his sister. When I told her I wanted a divorce, she looked at me like I had lost my mind. You've been obsessed with my brother for a decade, and now you want out. Why is he bad in bed? My face flared red. No. It's not that. Did he cheat on you? Well, not technically, but he's going to. Chloe stared at me, thoroughly confused. Look, Tiffany, I love you, but my brother is a boring, workaholic robot. Honestly, getting away from him might be the best thing that ever happened to you. She patted my shoulder, her eyes suddenly lighting up with mischief. I know exactly what you need. You need to see what else is out there. What do you mean? I'm taking you to a private lounge. Chloe grinned, pulling out her phone. They have the most gorgeous male models and entertainers, from athletic, sweet guys to mysterious. Brooding types, they have everything. Trust me. Once you see what's out there, you'll realize my brother isn't that special. Before I could object, Chloe dragged me out the door and into her car. She drove us to an incredibly exclusive, private club in the city. The security was airtight, ensuring absolute privacy. We were escorted to a luxurious VIP suite, and within minutes, 8 incredibly handsome, shirtless men were lined up in front of us. Chloe, I whispered, shifting uncomfortably on the plush leather sofa. Isn't this a bit much? Nonsense. Chloe smirked, waving her hand at the men. Don't just stand there. Boys, come make my friend smile. In an instant, the guys surrounded us, pouring drinks and offering sweet, charming compliments. Growing up, my entire world had revolved around Julian. I had never allowed another man to get close to me. But now, with a couple of cocktails in my system and a broken heart, The attention was incredibly intoxicating. Julian, who I thought, taking another sip of my drink. I don't know any Julian. Just as I was starting to relax, letting one of the handsome hosts guide my hand to show off his toned abs. The heavy double doors of the VIP suite were kicked open with a deafening bang. "What do you think you're doing?" I jumped, instantly pulling my hand back. Standing in the doorway was Julian. He was wearing a perfectly tailored black suit, his expression cold enough to freeze the room. Behind him stood a dozen muscular men dressed in matching black tactical gear. For a wild, panicked second, my novel world trauma flared up. In the book, my character was arrested by a dozen police officers after trying to kidnap the heroine. Is this it? Am I being arrested for solicitation? "Please don't arrest us," I cried out, standing up defensively. "We didn't do anything illegal. We still have all our clothes on." "Look!" The room fell dead silent. Then, someone in the back snickered. The bright overhead lights were switched on, and under the glare, I realized the men behind Julian weren't police officers at all. They were his private security detail. My face burned with a heat so intense I thought I might spontaneously combust. Julian didn't find it funny at all. His jaw was clenched, his eyes dark with absolute fury. He turned to his lead guard. "Bind her and bring her to my car." The guard hesitated, then nodded, stepping forward. "Yes, sir. Hold on a second." Chloe stepped in, pulling a pair of dark sunglasses over her eyes with an incredibly cool flare. "Let me choose the hottest one to bind me." I stared at her, silently cheering her on. Chloe marched up to the best-looking guard, offering her wrists. "You can take me away." Then she looked back at me. "Tiffany, remember, we do not let men walk all over us. If my brother tries anything, call 911. We live in a civilized society." Julian looked like he was about to pop a blood vessel. He waved his hand, ordering his guards to drag his ridiculous sister out of the room. When the doors closed, leaving only the two of us, the silence in the room became heavy. I looked down, my guilt warring with my stubborn pride. "How did you find us?" I mumbled. He didn't answer. He walked over slowly, trapping me against the back of the sofa. His hand reached out, his fingers locking under my chin, forcing me to look at him. "Did you have fun? Did any of them touch you?" I remained silent, glaring at him. His thumb brushed over my cheek, tracing down to my bottom lip. "Did anyone kiss you here?" "What does it matter to you?" I snapped. Julian's eyes flared with anger, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "Answer me." The sheer force of his voice broke something inside me. All the fear, the heartbreak, and the exhaustion of trying to fight a pre-written destiny came pouring out, and tears immediately spilled over my lashes. "You're a jerk. Julian, I hate you. I hate you so much." I rarely cried in front of him, and the sight of my tears seemed to completely shatter his anger. He froze, his hands hovering over me, looking completely lost. "Tiffany, why are you crying?" He leaned down, gently kissing the tears from my eyes, his touch incredibly tender. "Don't cry. Please. You don't understand anything." I sobbed, my voice cracking. "I don't want to love you anymore. You're going to fall in love with someone else. And then I'll turn into this horrible, crazy woman who tries to ruin your life. And then you'll throw me in prison." Julian let out a long, heavy sigh, his voice a mix of amusement and deep affection. "Why would you think that?" I bit my lip, unable to tell him the truth. How could I explain to him that we were characters in a book, and that he was destined for someone else? He kissed another tear from my cheek, his voice a soft whisper against my skin. "Tell me, sweetheart, why?" And so, with the alcohol making me brave, I told him everything. I told him about the book, about my designated role as the villain, about Harper Wells being the destined heroine, and how I was trying to run away to save myself from a tragic ending. Julian listened in absolute silence. When I finally finished, I hid my face in my hands, expecting him to call me crazy. Instead, Julian let out a soft laugh, wrapping his arms tightly around me and pulling me into his lap. "I'm sorry. Tiffany, I'm so sorry." I sniffled, looking at him. "Are you making fun of me?" "Never," he said, his eyes filled with a deep, Sincere warmth. I'm apologizing because I didn't give you enough security. I was too slow, and I let you believe you weren't wanted. But you need to know something. If there really is a book, you've already rewritten it. He cupped my face, looking deeply into my eyes. You chose to walk away because you didn't want to hurt anyone. My beautiful, sweet girl could never be a villain. And as for me, why can't I choose to defy this story and love you? I stared at him, my heart pounding. But what about the milk? You drank it. I drank it because I wanted to. Julian confessed, a faint blush appearing on his own cheeks. I knew what you were doing. Tiffany, I let you trap me because I wanted you. The marriage. The penthouse. None of it was forced. I wanted all of it. But the fight at the restaurant, I muttered. You protected Harper. I would have protected anyone in that situation. He explained gently. It was basic human decency. She just happened to hide behind me. And I reacted. The hospital visit lasted exactly 5 minutes because she wanted to thank me. And the rumors about the event, they're as fake as the ones about you and your co-star. Then why did you say she was better suited for the movie? I demanded. The anger returning. You literally tried to take my role away. Julian looked incredibly embarrassed, rubbing the back of his neck. I invested in that movie because I heard you wanted it. But when I read the final script, I realized there were several intense, unsimulated intimate scenes. And the director had a strict no body double policy. I couldn't bear the thought of another man touching you like that. So I blocked it. I stared at him, completely speechless. You did that because you were jealous. Extremely, he admitted, his gaze dropping to my lips. He slowly unbuttoned his cuffs, tossing his designer watch onto the sofa. Now that we've cleared up all your questions, I believe we have a highly pressing matter to discuss. I swallowed hard, my heart racing for a completely different reason now. What matter? 8 male models. Julian murmured, a dark, dangerously seductive smile spreading across his face as he leaned in close. You certainly had a wonderful night, Mrs. Vance. But now, it's my turn. A month later, I attended a high-profile fashion gala. While waiting for Julian to pick me up in the parking garage, I stumbled upon a quiet corner and saw Harper Wells kissing a man against the side of a luxury SUV. The man was holding her tightly, his face buried in her neck, completely devoted. I was about to slip away when Harper looked up and saw me. Tristan, wait in the car for a second, she whispered to the man. The man, Tristan Croft. The dark, brooding rival billionaire from the original novel, gave me a cold warning glance before stepping into the SUV. Harper walked over, smoothing down her elegant gown, a friendly smile on her face. You and Julian are really happy, aren't you? We are, I said, feeling a wave of peace. I'm sorry about earlier. I didn't mean to pry. Don't worry about it. She laughed softly. To be honest, when I first met Julian, I felt this strange, almost magnetic pull toward him. It felt like some cosmic force was trying to push us together. But the moment you walked into that dinner, his eyes never left you. The pull vanished instantly. She looked back at the SUV where Tristan was waiting. And now, I've found the person who actually makes my heart race. I'm happy for you. Harper, I said sincerely. Thank you. You too, she waved. Walking back to her car, I watched her go, a smile spreading across my face. Tristan Croft was supposed to be the tragic, lonely rival in the book, destined to die alone. But here he was, deeply in love. Every single piece of the original story had been completely rewritten. We weren't puppets of destiny anymore. We had our own souls, and we had chosen our own paths. My phone vibrated in my hand, and I quickly picked up. Hey, babe. Julian's deep, warm voice echoed through the speaker, instantly wrapping me in comfort. I'm parked right outside, ready to go home. Yeah, I smiled, stepping out into the cool night air. I'm coming?